it tomorrow, today over there? I forget. It's 4 o'clock or so in the East Coast. We've got a great show again. It's Art and Greg, and we got Ken today. Before we jump in, let's give it a little synopsis. It is the 17th of May. Next week is Memorial Day, which means Christmas is just around the corner.
Really?
I can't freaking believe it. We'll talk about the copy industry today. The world just keep churning and burning. We've got AI stuff happening like crazy. Consolidation in the industry. Technology is alive and well. Art, why do we have Ken here today?
Good question. I haven't seen Ken in years, and I thought he would be a great guest.
I think it's a great idea. Ken, now, out in the form of a brief introduction, Ken and I and the three of us, geez, oh pizza, we've known each other for a
long time. I know. Miss you guys.
Holy smokes. This could be like the inner circle of the inner circle.
Well, we have an inner circle.
It's a little incestuous, but okay, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, it's incestuous.
Yeah.
God, Ken, that's cool. Now, Ken and I go back. I know Ken was back in the MPS days, and I guess there still are MPS days. I shouldn't say back in, but in the beginning,
the original,
the original. We're in
the birth of.
Yeah, the birth. If you were to cut down our tree, the MPS tree, we'd be on one of those real inner circles where the rings are more out expanded. But yeah, long time. And then, so yeah, we want to talk about all sorts of stuff, Ken. Today, this is a Ask Us Anything kind of format. We ramble on. But we've had some really good discussions about sales in general, technology in general, and all sorts of stuff. Art, what's going on with you?
End of month is coming on the 23rd. So I've been out just doing more appointments, making more phone calls, following up, trying to get to monthly numbers. A little bit tougher this month to get to the monthly nut. I mean, if projections go right, which kind of 50-50, sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I should make up for last month, and be even going into the last month of the quarter.
Cool.
Yeah. So sales wise, interesting. I did have my first client who contacted me and actually wanted me to ship a machine to the port of Miami so could ship it overseas.
Wow.
Interesting, right? First time I've ever had that.
Where he lives, they don't have copiers?
No, they do.
Oh.
Sometimes I don't beg to ask why. I mean, sometimes if they say, I want it and I want it to get here and tell me what it's going to cost, who am I to ask why?
Yep, I get you. Ken Stewart, what are you up to nowadays?
Oh, goodness, man, trying to solve all the problems of the world one meeting at a time, man. That's how it is. So, yeah, I've got busy in the software world these days. Got lots of projects working on there. Writing a book in the final stages of that one.
Oh, really?
So, wow. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, decided to get busy on that one. Been something that's been really cathartic for me. So I just wanted to do it as kind of a hobby, and turns out, I had about 40,000 words in me. So there we go. Who would have thought, right? So
that's what happens. What's the book about? What is it?
So it's called Burn That Project Down, right? So it's really kind of a salty take on how to help frustrated and new project managers or bosses that are frustrated with their project managers. And so the idea is I've been dealing with project managers now probably going on 3 decades. And I just got tired of having to teach them things all the time. And so I finally just decided to write a book about all the stuff that you don't get when you're reading all the technical mumbo jumbo. You need a lot of the other stuff that you just have to learn over the time. So I'm trying to help short circuit some of that and give people some actionable things they can take with them, build a toolbox, or call it a signature system. Just trying to help people out. So far, good reviews on the book by the beta readers. And so I'm happy with that.
Oh, that's cool.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah. Trying to do a little different take. Each one of the chapters starts out with a little narrative and, trying to make it not so dry, because let's face it, man, project management's a pretty dry topic, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is, but gosh, I remember what was it, the application called Primavera or Microsoft
Mm.
Project was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
The simple
Mm-hmm.
one.
Yep. It's
And
not so simple now.
yeah, I know. Trying to throw PM at this is back network installations and stuff like that back in the olden days, or any kind of project. Heck,
Yeah.
at Icon we tried to. Well, I think someone did use it, one of my installers or whatever. But yeah, I hear. Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool, Ken. That's really cool. Um, in general, what are you seeing out there, Ken, in the business environment? What's your take on? You know what? Yeah, it's a wide open question, but what's your take on where we're at? And throw everything in: technology, AI,
Yeah.
society. Yeah.
I mean, I've been spending a lot of time over the last 12 months with AI. So, I mean, I got done with the Northwestern course for business executives, going through that, helping to understand strategies and technical implementations. Been doing a lot of that vendor analysis internally with the company I work for,
Oh, okay.
working on internal deployments of tools like that, spending a lot of time networking and talking with, I guess you can call them subject matter experts. Nobody really says they are, but they're all kind
Mm,
of, in that space, and having a lot of really good conversations around like ethics and the impacts and all that. And I mean, it's, I think what I'm sensing based on, the closet that I live in, is really just this idea that everything is moving at breakneck speed. Everybody's worn out by that. Everybody expects value delivery sooner, faster, better, more specifically for them. So marketers are having a tougher time. Salespeople are having a tougher time. Technologists are having a tougher time. And so the other piece is like, the enterprises are really accelerating their adoption and digestion of AI. Meanwhile, the rest of the small and mid-sized companies are still kind of struggling with it. The tool sets are coming on board. And I think there's this other really interesting thing that's beginning to emerge. Just like every movement that begins to happen, you see this kind of counter movement that's happening. And so there's this really, with all of the things that are happening politically and economically in the world, there's this real craving, especially like when I talk to my daughter's generation, all her friends are kind of saying the same thing. Like they're almost kind of saying we have too much technology. There's not enough connection.
mm.
There's too much going on there, and so there's this counter movement of people wanting to really start connecting again. And so I don't know how corporate America deals with that, really, or corporate global deals with that. It's interesting looking at the life that's out there right now in terms of financial returns and performance versus the people on the other end.
Hmm.
That's what I see going on, man. It's
Yeah. I
get
mean,
your stuff out there sooner, faster, better, cheaper, and make money. That's the corporate tempo.
right, right. And then I think about it's kind of interesting, what I think you kind of swerved into, or probably mentions the dichotomy between enterprise and SMB and even medium size, right? I
Yeah,
mean, so if you
yeah.
look at the enterprise space, they're dropping big bucks. I mean, these are the
Huge,
Amazons, the
huge.
Microsofts. It's huge amount of money and time going
Yeah,
into
yeah.
whatever this AI thing is,
Yep.
right?
Oh, and
But
it's got some real meat to it too. I mean,
oh
like
yeah,
I'm seeing there are kind of two real players in this, or the enterprises who are investing in it internally, like my company is, and they're killing it like gangbusters on really getting some early striking a chord with customers early.
hmm.
And then obviously you've got your people who own the space. They've got the corner on the market like Microsoft, and Meta is launching their new open source model, or launched their open source model, and so that's really doing a good job for people. But then you've got your ISVs, almost your partners that are out there that are really setting themselves up as integrators that are learning there are tools to help people cross connect that stuff. So there's this
Yeah.
kind of like you saw with the resurgence of web search and people that helped move from general search to local search.
Okay.
You're seeing people do the same thing with AI implementations right now. So they're getting really custom specific about onboarding a customer, zeroing that customer's focus on one or two things, and they're delivering like somewhere between 3 and 35x value to the customer
Yeah.
based on the people I'm talking with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what they're talking about are unicorns, which are basically your billion-dollar company valuations, that are 1 to 10 people,
Oh no.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy. The tool sets are now in a place where you can sit in a coffee shop and become a unicorn. That's crazy.
Boy, that'd be wonderful. I've been in plenty. So I was going to
Well,
try and swerve that back into, office technology, right?
Yeah.
So Art, I'm guessing Art, because you're our guy on the street, right? Is AI playing anything at all in what your discussions are with businesses?
not not really, not in the
No.
SMB, not even with talking to owners of companies or C-level of SMBs who uh, I'm not hearing anything, but on another point, not asking, and maybe I should be asking, right?
Well, yeah.
Because one of the first questions I have, I mean, for Ken is, he mentioned these, what toolkits, I think, right?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Where do you get these toolkits from?
They're
And
different vendors. What they're
what-
doing is they're basically creating like little, web-based, kind of like think like Zapier, for instance, is a good example. Is like a web-based, like a draw. You can draw your workflow, connect it in with whatever you want, and design your workflow how you want with a graphical tool, and there you go. You're in, right?
And I've seen this. I think this is what you're talking about. Because, well, heck, I've written about it, writing out workflows on the back of a napkin, right? Even if it's just as simple as invoices coming through the mail, open up the envelope,
Yeah.
scan it.
Yeah.
You draw
Yeah.
it out.
right?
Yeah.
So there are applications that literally you can draw it out by hand, and it'll
Yeah.
convert that into code and process and whatever.
Well, these are even more interesting because they don't
Yeah.
really worry about all the code. They're just basically focused on, like I was looking up the company's name, right? VoiceFlow. VoiceFlow was one of the vendors that I looked at. I think they reached out to me on some stuff, and we talked through some stuff, but it was really they're basically, they couch themselves as a garage or a toolbox. And so you sign up for their service on a monthly fee, and you pay some level of, there's a couple of tiers you would pay into. And,
Right.
basically you go into a diagram and you start drawing your little workflows like you want, and then
Right.
you drop a couple of hooks into your website. Like if you got a WordPress site or something, you could drop a hook in, so you have a chatbot that's instantly, like you would use their chatbot skin, and all of a sudden you've got a chatbot living on your system. Now, whether you hook that into an LLM, like a large language model, or whether you just leave it on its own and whatever, they let you choose how you want to work on that. So you can choose any one of the 4 or 5 major models that are out there. You can bring your own model if you want to. It's starting to get to a place where it just takes somebody. It's not quite there yet, but it's starting to develop into this place where if you have a desire and understand the process you want to hit, you can do it.
Yep.
It's there. I think though, Art, I was going to ask you a question. Like in the SMB space and maybe the mid market space that you're talking about, like, I mean, I talked to some of my friends who, like, I got one of my friends who runs a landscaping company, and he's like, he asked me about some AI stuff, and I was like, interesting. Why are you interested in AI? And he's like, well, there's a vendor that we use to do quotes, and our owner believes that if we actually get the quoting out faster, that we could get jobs sooner. And so we're looking at that whole process.
Get paid
And so,
sooner, get
yeah.
The whole
extra
And
thing,
so,
compress
jobs.
the
Yep.
cycle. Yep.
Yep.
but I'm kind of wondering, like, are the people, out there that you guys are talking to, are they actually thinking about that, or is it just too much of a fire hose? Is there too much? Do they even know about it? And if they know about it, is there just too much noise going on?
Right. Right. Yeah, I can't answer that because I don't talk about AI that often to my end users.
I also
And I definitely
yeah.
should be. There's no question in my mind. I should at least ask the question and see what they're doing for AI.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's interesting, Art, to see where they're at. But it doesn't surprise me, right? I don't think in
Yeah, that surprised me.
in the copier market it's going to impact sales any more than it or less than anything else right now, right? I think that we'll kind of I'll answer your question first or in a second, Ken, but what I look for with AI is how is it going to impact the office environment in
Hmm.
terms of people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Process. Do
Yeah.
we need to output anything on paper anymore? Do we need to digest anything coming in on paper? Sure. And then
Yeah.
how many people are still in the organization after? And you outlined it perfectly. If you can put down a workflow in your head on paper or whatever, the new AIs, the LLMs, whatever, that can now be automated and entered in the system, right? And you don't have to do. You know, I'm paraphrasing, but
Yeah. I think you're on target.
But isn't there going to have to be quite a bit of integration with the ERPs?
Well, I was talking to a customer, not a customer. You might have heard of him, Ken Sprinkler. One of my conversations last. Oh man,
I didn't catch that.
top. Well, it wasn't streamed. It was they work with F50s, Fortune 50s.
Oh, okay.
High-end stuff.
Yeah.
And they're doing just that, Art. They're integrating disparate databases through AI, and I'm sure I'm butchering their value prop, but it was one of the few times I sat down with someone for about 45 minutes and my head actually did hurt. It was mind blowing.
There's some crazy stuff people are doing. I mean, it's
the talk is the talk. I mean, we've been talking about this. I mean, I was back at what, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago talking with hospitals on how they could try and integrate their asset management programs, right? For IT, they've got PCs, mice, oxygen tanks, all on separate databases. Shouldn't they all talk? And yeah, but so that whole thing, jam it into a spreadsheet, get into financials. Well, this person from Sprinkler's saying, well, we're doing that right now using AI to integrate disparate SaaS systems and blah 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 blah. I go, well, okay, I made her repeat it because she's from Xerox. She used to work at Xerox a while back. I think a VP of some sort. Anyway, so she knew what I was trying to get at. I go, so you truly can integrate your marketing data with your production data, or vice versa, from the shop floor to the to the Twitter. She goes, that's what we're working on. Then she also said that the AI projects are very complicated because they can't go in on one silo at a time, which makes sense, right? When we're used to a doc management system. Okay, we'll concentrate on accounts payable or receivables, processing that. You can do that, but with AI at this level, it's just too much. And
well, you can. I mean, but that's one of the things that was interesting with the Northwestern course that I took, which was about an 8-week course that really gave me a lot of tools in my toolbox about how would I help my company or executives or owners really strategize about where to go with. And what they do is they help you take a look at your overall landscape of opportunities, and then they bring you down into a one-pager per opportunity that you want. So it may be, to your point, Greg, that you have to do it cross company like that, but it might not be. You might be able to integrate specifically into one specific silo of data, because here's the thing is, man, like I think they're spot on. The Sprinkler company you're talking about is because the data side of the equation is really challenging, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the interesting thing is, like in my Northwestern course, they really, really focused on cleaning your data. But funny enough, that's actually a very yesterday kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like these LLMs, the way that they're beginning to train them is that you get foundational models and then you use various approaches, but there's a lot of popular approaches out there that are taken off. But essentially, you kind of think about you layer on top of a foundational model that's already been trained and kind of thinking like a high schooler or a college student, and then you give them additional instruction on top of that with your data, and they make sense of it based on how they see it. And so I just got done reading a book by Ethan Mollick, who's a Wharton professor, called Co-Intelligence, right? And good read, really easy, very approachable, not technical really. It's really just about how to think about it. He brought up a really interesting point that stuck with me, which is that like AI, we want to think about it like a computer program because it runs on computers. But he said it's not like a human intelligence. It doesn't digest and think about things like a human. And it also does not operate like software, because the way that it's trained is very different and it's not actually fully understood. And so you have this, what he calls alien intelligence. It's a little disturbing to think about.
Yeah.
But it approaches the problem and thinks about things in a way that you and I don't, and it does it at record-breaking speed. So I got into this debate with my daughter about art, so we generated a picture for her inside of a minute and a half.
Okay.
Right? A full-on, like, Alice in Wonderland, kind of Mad Hatter looking thing.
Okay.
That was super cool and perfectly captured what she was trying to do in a minute and a half. Okay. And she said, yeah, well, those AIs are just copying other art. I said, actually, not really. No, what they're doing is they've learned how to look at all that data, interpret it a certain way, and then based on the correlation to text that you use, they just basically say, well, these words equate to this visualization output, which is just pixels on a page, much like a copier or printer would do when it does PostScript or when it does, some sort of rasterization process, right?
Right.
So it's a really interesting correlation to the imaging industry, in my opinion, when you have a diffusion model like DALL-E or one of the other ones that's out there, and it can do that, right?
Wow.
So,
Yeah, you're swerved into something. So in the last year, just like you, I've been all up in the AI
yeah.
incredibly, and reaching out and making some contacts with artists. You can imagine some artists hate it.
Oh, hate it. Hate it.
Hate it. So I'm
Yeah.
picking out the few that are embracing it,
Mhm.
and they are. It's incredible, right?
Yeah.
And the whole argument there is it isn't really how the art hits the screen or the palette or even music, right? It's the interface between the end user, the reader,
Mhm.
the person
Mhm.
who's looking at it, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, your daughter, or not your daughter, but someone might look at that image that you guys created, right? And that's going to impact them
Mhm.
differently than anyone else, which is what art is supposed to do.
That's what it's supposed to do.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter that Leonardo da Vinci, I mean, it's a nice story,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And Picasso and all of them, there's a nice story there. But the real story is a one-on-one, what the art or what that piece does invokes with the viewer. That
Yeah.
so I mean, that was early on. Now, music was different in a sense, but every good musician knows it's only three chords, and if you want to get the crowd going, it's 120 beats per minute. That's it's
Yep.
not that, and there's much more
Yeah.
to it, but that's it.
Yeah.
So you throw that into a machine, and I think I just heard one the other day, completely AI generated off of a prompt, took 2 minutes
Yeah.
with words,
Those words. Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
So
This is the worst AI that you're ever going to experience. It'll get
I
better
know
from
that's
there.
what he's
Yeah.
like. This is how. Hey, do you
So,
remember the images just a year ago?
oh, terrible. Yeah.
Terrible. I mean, they were
Yeah. Terrible.
abstract, if anything.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's just an
Yeah.
abstract of an astronaut on a horse on
Yeah.
Mars. Yeah. Now it's an astronaut on a horse on Mars. It's wow. So, but anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. I don't even remember what the question was you asked, but
Just kind of what you guys are seeing out there in your space, because I mean, everybody I talk with, it becomes a little bit of an echo chamber because everybody's so hyped up on AI right now, and it's the gold rush right now for AI. And
Yep.
so people kind of lose focus on what's the rest of the world actually thinking about and doing about it. And they forget that they're in the 2% of the people that are focused on AI. The rest of the world really isn't. And so the question becomes, can AI cross that chasm and help other people with their daily lives? It's your point about what's on the screen is the value that AI is delivering. And so that's the whole question that we're asking ourselves is, does AI deliver value, and how? Does it do it ethically? Does it do it safely? Does it do it humanely? What does that mean? So it's really important. I just heard another creator talk about the average age of our politicians and how it's roughly, I want to say it was 63 was the average, 59, something like that. It was pretty old.
I thought it was older, but okay.
Yeah, but it's compared to like Europe, which is 49, and compared to some other countries, which is even younger than that. And I really was just struck with this comment that he made that said, should people in that generation be making decisions when they don't even understand what Wi-Fi is? So it's a compelling question.
Yeah.
But then we all get left with the question. We joked about that before the show about getting a little bit more mileage on us, and we all want to know. We've always wanted to know what does the future hold, and we hope to have a place in that future. Now we're really challenged with that question, right? So talk about the end of the month, man.
Yeah. It's interesting, for someone like me, what I'm kind of like the sprinkler business, right? That you mentioned, Greg. I want AI to help me save time in my research that I have to do with a number of accounts. So I have more time to be belly to belly with clients, be on site or do virtuals and get sales.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's it. I mean,
Pretty simple.
Here's I boil it down to this. It's like, what are the three things? Increase sales, reduce costs, grow profits. Those are the three, right?
Mhm.
Everything else, everything, casual Fridays, Taco Tuesdays, Christmas parties, whatever. If it doesn't hit one of those three, then it's peripheral, right? So if AI or whatever solution you look at, especially when you're selling it, I mean, how does what I'm offering you impact one of those three? And now we can really swerve off. If you look at DEI and ESG and all these other things that businesses are putting into their value prop, well, I dare people to draw a conclusion, to connect the dots between whatever movement, right,
Right.
and increase profit, reduce costs, and more revenue. If you can make a connection between those two, then it's valid. Everything else right now is invalid. Everything else is
So
peripheral.
here's a question though, I mean, you're talking about what I believe is a why. So why is increased profits, increased revenues, decreased costs, right? So, Art, you're talking about you want to
Right.
be able to get the sales faster, be more efficient, save time.
Correct.
Why? Why is that important to you?
Well, so I get extra orders, make more money.
Okay, so why do you want more money?
So I can get more things that I need to do.
Okay, and so what do those things do? Well, you have more things.
So,
What are more?
quality of life,
Okay,
investments,
okay,
more time,
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
free time, right?
yeah,
That I
yeah,
can spend with my granddaughters, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Okay,
instead of me putting in maybe an hour or 2 hours, a couple times a week because I've got to get this done because a client needs this on a time basis. Hopefully AI can help me with that,
yeah.
right?
So
Right?
you want AI to help you be more human, is what you're saying?
More human?
Yeah. So you
Yeah,
can spend more time and less work, right?
correct.
Yeah,
And
it
and
buys you
and
time. That's what you're saying.
correct.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It is. Okay, finish that. I don't want to cut you off, Ken.
Yeah, you're not cutting me off. That's the question. Is I'm actually
Okay.
working on a piece right now that asks kind of that similar question: is if all of corporations are focused on return of shareholder value,
Mm-hmm.
where does that leave us as people? We see that in the employment numbers. We see that in the employment sentiment right now, especially in the tech sector, right?
Right.
If we ask ourselves if the mantra of corporate America and global corporate is return on shareholder value, and that's the only real focus that they have, because everything else is ancillary,
Absolutely.
then where we go. But here's interesting. I did a talk many years ago in a former life for a bunch of executives who did some research, right? In I want to say 68, the Senate subcommittee was tasked with dealing with the advent of technology because the concern at the time was technology being the dawn of computers, really at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and all this other technology, industrialization and manufacturing, things like
Right.
that, were really accelerating as well too. And so they were really concerned about idle hands being the devil's playthings. So they were concerned with Americans specifically having too much time on their hands. And they estimated that if things kept progressing the way that they saw, that people would only be working 23 hours. I want to say it was 20 hours a week for 23 weeks a year.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And since 1975, and you look at the productivity increase of technology and the advent of technology, the American culture has actually declined in its amount of vacation time that it takes.
Yep. I just
We
saw a
work
stat came
more
out
now.
yesterday. Yes, we work
Yeah.
more now than then,
Yeah.
and
Than we
more
ever
than
have.
anyone else.
Absolutely. Right. So my question is, does AI actually bias that? Because it's not even that I don't argue that it can, but are we willing to allow it to
Mm-hmm.
buy ourselves that time? Or will we just fill our time with more things?
Well, that's a good question, and it actually does open up the whole. I mean, we're moving out of the age of tape. Well, let's be really woo-woo. It is out of the Gemini age into the Aquarian if you go with the horoscopes and all that stuff.
Yeah, sure.
And it's a move away from Taylorism, which was the assembly line. The skyscrapers were built to manage resources that happen to be human, right? So we're moving away from that. We are, and you swerved into it earlier, Ken, when you said the unicorn, the 10-person billion-dollar company. Well, I heard one of those guys say the 1-person billion.
1-person billion. Yeah. That's crazy.
Which is great and utopian, but goes right back to, okay, well, what are we going to do?
I mean, does a 1-person company need a printer? I don't know.
No.
Maybe one printer.
Not really. 1 person, no.
So much for the value prop of MPS, right?
I know. Well, yeah, this is like the last. I've been saying it for years, so it's probably not the last. It's the last renaissance. Ooh, that's a good title there. But it does shake at the foundations, Ken, of capitalism. That's why I brought it up. It's like, okay, you're starting to hear more and more people talk about universal income. Whatever, I don't know what that is.
Well, it's basically paying everybody a flat. So let's say we pay everybody $40,000 a year just to be, right? Just to be, yeah. So there's no more welfare. You just have UBI, right? That's what Sam Altman's pushing for. Is basically
that's probably who I heard say it.
He believes that so we talk about capital usually being cash, but also human capital. And so the problem you run into is it's almost like you've got this rope that has a bunch of slack in it, and there's this gap now between everything. And so what you run into is if AI takes off in the next 5 years, really supplants human labor, you don't necessarily have people out of jobs from a standpoint of being let go. You probably will initially to a certain extent, but what you really run into is uptake. And what I mean by that is Sally and her team of 4 people had to manage the entire marketing budget and deal with all the work there, or grant writing or sales or you name it, whatever the case may be. And now because of AI helping Art make his job better, faster, quicker, and he's getting more done with just him, you don't need 4 other people. You just need Sally or you just need Art doing their job, right? And so what you end up with is you end up with slack in the human capital marketplace, which means that you've now got, for every 1 person who has a job, you have 4 people that don't. The job doesn't need 5 people doing the job. It only needs 1 person. So it's not like Sally gets fired. It's just that there's not a lot of job creation that will happen. So you end up with this really big problem for 5, 10, 20 years where you've got massive unemployment. That's the concern.
The shift.
Yeah. What do you do in that time? Sam Altman's answer is UBI, right? I don't know if that's a good idea.
I don't know either. I don't know where that B comes from.
But wouldn't we all tend to think that this wild west of AI would even create new opportunities, new businesses?
Absolutely.
New people. I tend to think it would create jobs as well as losing jobs.
Yeah, long term it will. The question is, in the meantime, how fast does that happen? How fast does the golden age arrive? And what do you do in the gap year?
The golden age of AI, right?
Yeah.
Right,
AGI, they're saying 5 to 20 years away is when we're going to have artificial general intelligence.
Right. So, and technology is moving at breakneck speeds right now.
Yeah. This is a scary. You know about Moore's law that talks about how CPUs double every 2 years or whatever it is. I think.
Yep.
In modern day AI, that's every 4 to 8 months.
Yeah. We can see that. You can see it. I mean, just in ChatGPT 3.5 versus 4.0 versus 4, not 4, whatever, 3.5, whatever, what it is today.
Yeah. I wonder though if you're going to run into some natural constraints like energy availability, data center availability, those kinds of things, because you just can't run that much compute fast enough. What's slowing people down, for instance, you need more nuclear power, and about all the regulations on nuclear power. So you're not going to see a new nuclear power plant come online in the U.S. anytime in the next 20 years, probably. Right.
You couldn't.
But what you'll see is you'll start seeing pressure on Congress to deregulate that.
Oh yeah, you'll see it. Also, I mean, energy is a big issue. The chips. The NVIDIA dude addressed that.
Oh yeah.
Thing. the pressures will be on how to create the same chips with less energy.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
maybe, and then turn on the nukes. But it will get answered. It will get answered, and it won't be 10, 20 years. It's just this is
Some
a
of it will. Some of,
huge.
but yeah, the job market may not be. Yeah, you're right.
Well, I don't know about the job market. That's what I don't know about.
I don't. Yeah.
Um,
I've been trying to see into that one, and that's a hard one to see. Too many moving parts.
It's a lot of moving parts. It's nothing but a big old gaping hole. That's the problem. I mean, I can see where, even manual labor, these robots are incredible now.
Yeah, they're
So,
getting that way. Yeah, they're getting really interesting, and it's now they're believing that the new AI or AGI, depending, will help us solve some of the obstacles to
that's it.
really taking robots to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost so the NVIDIA we had a fab. They designed a fab,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
to manufacture their chips. It's a manufacturing. But what they did is they gave it to AI to
Optimize it. Yeah.
design it.
Oh, to
And they
design it.
created a digital twin of the fab in La La Land, all the way down to employees, all the way down to power, everything,
Wow.
and tested it because it's a twin. It's a digital twin of the
Yeah.
fab
Yeah.
with employees, with everything. And I don't know the exact figures, but the construction time went down by years, not like a couple days. They can
That's
now
amazing.
build it in months versus years.
That's amazing.
Everything is completely optimized.
Mhm.
Everything from workflow, from everything from delivery, moving materials out the door, in the door, everything. And it was done by the NVIDIA chip designed the NVIDIA chip manufacturing plant. Oh wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that and then that yeah.
Definitely makes you think, right?
Well,
Yeah.
remember what was
Sure.
it? The Tom Cruise movie, which I'm in the middle of watching, the Precogs, right?
Oh yeah.
Minority Report.
Yeah. Thank you. Right.
So there's a scene when he's running away and he ends up falling into an Audi plant where they're making cars. There's not a human in the plant.
Right.
It's all those big robots doing it. Well, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah, it's very, very fascinating.
Yeah. It's interesting because just recently one of the major copier manufacturers actually stated they wanted to optimize. I'm just trying to read it right here. I brought it up on the screen. Optimize human capital.
Yeah.
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 Funny thing is I was listening to one creator talk about that, where it's going to get framed as optimizing human capital today, but in another year or two, it's going to become really fine and okay and PC just to say, I just cut 20% of my staff and their stock price goes up.
Oh God, you'll see it already.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
You do. Whenever there's layoffs, the stocks go up.
Yeah.
I think consider this again for a little bit. I think that the recent, the blow up the bubble, these startups, one of the components of the company value was headcount.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I honestly believe that they started raking in so much money that instead of they couldn't expand anymore, this, that, and the other, well, we'll just hire 100 or 1,000 people. And then
Yeah. Throw bodies at it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you remember the one girl from Google or whatever? She was on TikTok. She never did anything. She never did anything. She walked around, went and got a bagel, did this, did that. She did her whole day on TikTok and never actually did a thing. Well,
Yeah. I think the golden day of tech is over, and that's where.
Yeah, they overdid it, and yeah. But so when I think that was Rico Art that might have said that about the human capital. I could be wrong.
it is. It is.
That statement alone tells me that they don't get it.
Why do you think that is?
Why they don't get it, or why I
Yeah.
think that?
Why do you think they don't get it?
Because they're referring it to human capital as a resource. They're equating humans as brick and mortar, as toner.
It is.
Maybe
On a
that's
balance sheet. It is.
I know.
maybe that's
the
the
old
On a
way.
P&L, it is really. Yeah.
that's
It
the
is.
start of where they want to get to.
Right.
Some of the bullet points after this said implement reskilling programs, develop digital professionals, AI specialists, system engineers. Oh, here you go, Ken. Process digitalization experts.
Yep.
So what that is a reflection of the old models. It's all it is. It could
Just
be
new and improved 2.0 version, 3.0 version.
it's not even that. It's worse than that. It's like you could take that what they just said and apply that to a manufacturing process
Sure.
or a whatever the hell it is. It doesn't matter. This is how we're gonna sell more widgets out of our warehouses from Japan. Doesn't matter. They're what AI will do is ultimately at you said it, at the grass level, at the grassroots level, the individuals.
Yeah.
All right. So we will know that we don't want to be part of that. It won't even be a struggle, is that there is no human capital anymore to call in on because we don't need it. It's not a raw material anymore. It's not a resource. The human capital is doing other things.
I mean, ideally, yeah, but that's not true.
That's what's good
now.
That's what's going to happen, though, and it's not going to be 20 years. Things are moving so dang fast that optimizing human capital will just mean optimizing capital.
The number one way to start a war, though, right?
Well, you assassinate a
you
president
take
of a
away
small country.
the way that maybe, but I mean, I think you take away economic certainty. I think that's one of the number one ways you drive a war, right?
Yeah. It's one of the ways. I mean, it's when you have scarce resources too. I mean, it's all that stuff, right?
I mean, think about economics is a resource.
Right.
I mean,
right.
your money is a means to buy. It's what Art said earlier: make more money to buy more things to have a better life.
Yeah.
That's what everybody. That's capitalism, and it actually is really it's every economic system out there for all intents and purposes.
You have something I want. I have something you want. Let's
yeah.
That's
I mean, it's just a representation of value, is all it boils down to. But my point, though, is that we live in a world that is haves and have nots, and so to be able to translate that into a way that we can do that's the piece of grace that we have to have. What's the finesse, right? I think honestly the problem to me with AI implementation is not AI, it's humans. That's the problem.
It's the same with document management. It wasn't the software, it was the humans you had to train to use the software, to know how to scan and all that crap. So
yeah.
I don't know. That's the big question, though. Seriously, that is the biggest. It goes to there are people that don't have computers in the world, guys. I mean, so do we? I don't know. What do we do? I don't know.
Well, so how does it how does it impact? I mean, that's the question mark, I guess you guys are kind of wrestling with. How does it impact your viewers, right? I mean, that's where is that? If Art's not talking about it on a regular basis, it could be that, perhaps Art needs to start asking more questions, but it could also be that your customers don't care or don't have an idea about it right now. Which is it,
I think the customers know about it, but there is no use case.
Yeah,
I think
there isn't.
Yeah, I think everyone basically has knows about it, heard about it, probably had some conversations at home or at the bar about it, brief. But basically, it's what I asked you, Ken. Okay, well, this this toolkit, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are they? Where do I get a digital toolkit? What can I do with a digital toolkit? Those are questions that I've thought about from time to time. How can I get myself more involved with? How can I get a hold of a piece of goddamn AI and make it work for me?
Most people start with an LLM interface like ChatGPT or Claude or something like that, right?
Correct. But
and that can help you write your scripts or whatever, like your intros and things like that. Yeah. So now other people are moving it to sales where they're actually having it make robocalls for them and things like that. Yeah, so there's that. But I mean, I think today you have to be. I'll tell you, I'll share this with you. So my vendor research that I've had to do some basic implementations of AI for our customers was challenging because every AI vendor does things a little bit differently. They have a different approach. There's different toolkits. It's very new in the marketplace, so there's a lot of them. There's a lot of noise, so it's hard for anyone, yourself included, to try to look for what you want. And then from there, you run into the technical feasibility of can you do it, and a cost barrier. There's a dramatic cost to some of these things for some of the toolkits. The cheapest one I found out there for a basic chatbot integration was about $50K at a scale for dealing with a couple 100,000 visits to your website every month or something like that, right? So it's a challenge, right? But I mean, they're starting to become more affordable, like some of the ISVs or the integrators that I'm talking to. They're doing consulting engagements that are pretty friendly. Like I know one guy that's doing a lot with sales teams, and he's helping them with script writing and libraries and quote generations and email campaigns and things like that. The challenge he's having is getting consistency in the replies and all that, making it sound human and not sound like an AI, like you've heard about online. Another one is using some back-end tools like Zapier, for instance, to hook into Zapier's back-end. And Zapier's got a whole bunch of connectors to all kinds of enterprise tools, right? So you don't have to do all the coding. You just get a subscription to Zapier, drag a couple things around, and there you go. You're good, right? So you have MailChimp as your inbound email marketing. Somebody sends you an email from your website. It comes in, it follows a flow that you've set up, and you've let it output to Zapier, right? That's a good example of some things that are happening. And there's plenty of things in the middle of all that if you want. There's all kinds of things you can do. But I think it's still a little bit too techy.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Still.
I mean, so boy, I don't even know where I can draw a comparison. Back in the old days with Excel, Lotus, Multiplan, WordPerfect. I mean, there were actual people who said, "Why would I ever want one of these?"
Oh,
And it
yeah.
was only because you couldn't get your head around it at that point. Now it's second nature. Right?
Yep.
Of course, you type on Microsoft Word. So I'm wondering where that bridge occurs with AI. And
You got to
it's,
use
I
it.
think
You got to use
AI,
it.
right, but I
Yeah.
think AI will probably seep in invisibly into other areas that I don't know, right? I mean,
So here's I was working on this concept with the AI DNA scorecard that I was working on. And what I looked at after my Northwestern course was a way to help companies with 8 questions understand kind of where they're at in that journey, right? And so I think it's a lot like NPS. When I was back in NPS, initially the challenge was at an enterprise scale. So you take your data collection software and you would integrate that and you would run that at scale. And it took an enterprise to do the work, right? And then over time, I mean, you remember what a print fleet server cost back in the day? It was, $50 to $100,000, $200,000 to get a print fleet server going. And does it cost that now? No, you don't even buy the server. You just subscribe to some service and pay an extra penny or half a cent or a quarter of a cent, whatever it is, right?
Right.
And so, I think AI is going to kind of take that. You're going to see enterprises. I was talking to one of my friends at ServiceNow, and what he's seeing a lot in the government and private space is, really driving into micro models or specialty models. So not these large language models that are general purpose, but very specific domain knowledge models.
right.
And so that's kind of permeating into the mid tier now, right? And government. Okay. And then you get into where you guys are at with the SMB. And I think you're going to see a lot of these tools embed AI inside. And that's how you're going to see AI come forward. So it's like what did Supplies Network call their program way back when with Doug? I forget. No, Doug Johnson ran that program for Supplies Network for a while. That was kind of the platform that was all abstracted and all. It was a pretty clever little setup.
Yeah, it was.
But I don't know if they got it now or not. But Kevin Morris used it with OneDoc and all that, right? So Kevin Morris, I mean, he runs a fantastic model where all he's got are basically the front end generators of leads and sales, and all the back end is fulfilled through his partners. And so that's what I think the future looks like for us as AI consumers. I mean, I use ChatGPT every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
So do I. I use it every day too.
And at first it was hard to figure out, like, why would I use this thing? And then it was like, oh, I could use it for this. Would that really work? Oh, okay, well, I can do this.
It's strange. That's an interesting question because, especially after the new version came out, which is pretty cool. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I get it now. Because I took a time where it's like, I don't need this anymore. It's just doing this. I don't really want to, I don't want to generate content, pure AI generated content. But then it don't make it so cerebral. What are the questions that come up during the day? That's what I start with, right? I wonder how I change the razor in this thing. Off it goes. It's like, oh, okay. I don't need to know that. I don't need to go look it up. I don't need a blue link. I just asked ChatGPT on my phone with the voice.
Dude, I was doing that. I was driving in my car and turned on ChatGPT. I didn't want to read the manual in my new car, and I said, hey, I'm driving this model car. I need to understand what these buttons are. And the whole, for 45 minutes, I had to do, hey, what is this button that looks like an A with a circle on it? And it would tell me.
No kidding.
No kidding. That was the
Wow.
4 model. That wasn't even 4.0. So what I found is 2 things. Like, this is what I'm hearing. So I follow a lot of experts, and then what they would say is that AI makes the expert better if they understand their process really well, and they are good at describing their process in specific steps.
Yep.
So it makes the expert supercharged in scale. What I found that makes me really good at is all the stuff that I don't know. It really helps me with general stuff that I don't need to worry about. Like, for instance, when I have to interpret all of the stuff that my wife's doctors talk about. That's a great one for me. It
Yeah.
does
I didn't
I said,
think about
explain it
that.
to me as a high schooler.
Boom. And
Fantastic.
there it is.
And I'll put in all of her lab results, and I'll put in all that fun stuff, and it's all there for me in plain language. And I actually literally have had conversations with doctors about, are you running this test? I said, well, give me a script of how I need to ask this provider what they're doing. And they said, oh, no, we weren't running that. Would you want us to? Why do you think we need to? Well, I think she might have this. Oh, okay. Well, that's a good idea. We should run that test. No kidding.
Wow.
No kidding. Right. So it's helping me
There you go, Art.
talk to my doctors. Right. So then on top of that, it helps me with, the basic stuff. Like, for instance, I needed to understand how to cook a meal, and it would walk me through that. Right. It also, I have this thing called the light bulb list that now that they've got in-memory chat, I can actually say, hey, I want you to create a light bulb list. The light bulb list are when I'm moving around doing stuff, I'm going to hit the record button, and I'm going to tell you to add this to my light bulb list, and I can come back to it later and have you explain it to me. I said, hey, I had something on my light bulb list that was about this topic. What is that? And I'll say, oh, well, here's what you're at. Well, what was I going to use that for? Oh, yeah. Well, here, this is what you're going to use that for. Oh, okay. Well, can you help me summarize? I want to brainstorm that idea. Can you help me do that real fast?
Okay, let me slow you down and recap what I think you just said.
Yeah.
Because it sounds
It's a lot.
good. So what you said is you can now have your phone and record ideas, but you've already told it that whenever I do this, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it puts it away, stashes it, and it could be a month, it could be 2 days later. Hey, didn't I have and it'll come up and say, yeah, you did. And what was I going to do? And it'll come back with that. So, oh, that's right. We had this interchange, I think, on LinkedIn. I use Evernote all the time, but it's just a big old pile of crap now. It's just, I can search through Evernote. But what you're saying is you could do that with chat, and it will come back at you.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
All right, I thought we lost you, Ken. So that's what. So all right, that's.
I had to turn off my little robot vacuum cleaner. So there we go. It gets started about this time every day.
I can't do that right now.
So I was curious about you mentioned the micro LLMs, right? And I am a beginner in this whole AI. My days are filled with sales and selling and stuff like that. AI, I get to dabble in.
Yeah.
But the micro LLMs to me would be that they could be developed for a sprinkler company. They could develop for
think about them
architects, engineers.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about them as specific to that vertical or that horizontal that you're working on. Yes, yeah. So they may be trained in some type of science or some type of grant writing or some type of construction code, right? So they're just micro models. So the large language models are the big ones that have all the data inputs, and they have huge numbers of variables that they run through. The micro models are meant to be more efficient, more streamlined, cost less, get up to speed faster. And so they're really domain specific, and they don't have all the privacy concerns because you could run them on site.
Right. Okay. So they're centralized. Would you consider that the same as an agent or different?
Different than an agent. So agents, so this is what's really starting to hit right now is think about agents like a swarm. Okay. So think about, you could have one LLM running multiple agents, which agents think of them as like personas. Right. Okay. Or you could have multiple LLMs working with each other, or you could have multiple micro models working with each other, whatever. It's all kinds of weird stuff.
The swarm, I like that. That's
it's like a swarm. So kind of think about what you want is that you have these personas that are talking to each other, and agents essentially have certain roles they would fulfill. Like you might have a workflow where you've got, let's say, for instance, a writer and a developmental editor and copy editor and a line editor and a publisher. And you want your workflow to go through a certain thing. And so these agents, instead of you instructing it specifically on how to do something, you say, here's the goal I want to get to. You guys figure it out, have fun. Agents go to work and figure it out.
Oh,
So AIs are actually talking to one another now.
so what's the benefit? I mean, okay, I think of an LLM as a great big omni agent. Then, I mean, why do I?
It's
tell
not
me
because
why
with
I do.
yeah.
Why I
So think
need
of,
a mini agent to work instead of.
do you guys know about prompt engineering? You've heard of that term?
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah, so basically it's this idea that you want to have, so there's lots of different ways you can approach it, whether it's zero shot or chain of thought, or whether it's, single shot or whatever, all kinds of different theories on how you want to write prompts. And so instead of having to, what they'll tell you is just say what you want it to do, but you have to be explicit. I
Right.
want this aspect ratio, and I want this, and I want that, and I want this, right? So instead of having to be so bespoke about teaching a fourth grader how to do the job, now instead of having a fourth grader or a high schooler, you now have
All right.
college interns or 4-year graduate degree people talking to each other, figuring it
Okay.
out themselves and working as a team. So you tell them an outcome, right?
Right. So you tell them the outcome, and as opposed to giving them the aspect ratios and
Yeah,
all that
yeah.
specifics.
And you can
of
give
the
them
prompt.
constraints. You give them,
Yeah.
each one of them might be trained specifically. So you might actually
Right.
spend time training them. But the other interesting thing is, goes back to Art's point about being techie. So I got to watch a guy do this. And so the coding stack on this is very different too. Instead of having to know JavaScript or Java or .NET or whatever, C#, C++, whatever,
Right.
you now have to know the English language. Right. And you can write about 50 to 60% of the code in plain language.
Right.
Really?
And you actually don't need to know all the other stuff. You can insert that with code libraries.
Mm-hmm.
And what's even more interesting is you can actually put it in verbose mode and watch it talk to each other and see how it's reasoning, to see if you agree with its reasoning skills.
Interesting. I'm guessing that whole process could act as training for the next process as well.
You can teach it to be self-learning, sure.
Yeah.
With the in-memory updates and things that they have now, it's getting to be kind of crazy like that. Yeah, I haven't seen that done specifically, but it's reasonable. You could.
Wow. Okay. There you go.
Yeah. Crazy times, man.
Holy
Like
crap.
I said.
My mind is freaking like,
And this is the conversation you want to have at 5 on a Friday, right?
I love it.
hey,
I don't want this on a Monday.
no, Fridays are better, man, because I'll be running downstairs in about 5 minutes and pouring me a nice drink.
There you go. I'm not going to burn these cells on Monday morning at 9:15. I wasted my whole brain on that thing. Not that I wasted it, but you know what I'm saying.
This has been good. This has been good.
Yeah, it's fun.
Ken, Greg,
Okay.
this has been a good talk track. I'm sure a lot of people are going to enjoy this too. And you are a wealth of information.
I appreciate it. You guys are always welcome. I love the conversations. I miss talking to you guys. It's been a long time and too long. So you're looking good, and I hope you're well.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you know what? If you've got the time, you're always invited.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming on board.
Yeah, always happy to be here, man. It's a good time. I miss you guys. So yeah, it's good stuff, and appreciate the invite. Thank you very much.
Well, you're quite welcome.
Take us out, Art.
Take us out. I got to remember how to take us out. My mind is like over here thinking of, I can do this, I can do that. Man, I could do so much. All right, slow down, Art. We'd like to thank everybody for tuning in for another version of Ask Us Anything. And it's actually our 17th show. And again, thank Greg, thank Ken, and please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe this awesome channel.
Cool. See you guys.
Take care, guys.
Yay. Recording stopped.